713-7100. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for popping in. We're back with Fauci.
Hi, joining me now is Lena Khan. She's the former chair of the Federal Trade Commission, having served under President Joe Biden. She's also an associate professor at Columbia Law School. Welcome back. Great to see you again.
Great to be here.
We talked a few weeks ago, and so much has happened since then, including the firing of your former colleagues at the FTC. This is unorthodox on a lot of levels. They have terms. They're not supposed to be fired in between their terms, and there's been an understanding of a sort of a relative party balance in this agency and independence from the executive. All of that got smudged away.
This is blatantly illegal. That's the first thing to know, that the law is crystal clear that commissioners can only be fired if they do something egregiously wrong.
Right.
If they engage in malfeasance, neglect of duty, some type of inefficiency. So there's no gray zone here. What the administration is trying to do by firing them violates the law. To me, though, the bigger question is, why do this? Right? I mean, the commission is now run by a Republican chair.
Right.
They're going to imminently have a Republican majority. Commissioners Bedoya and Slaughter have a proven track record of standing up for working Americans by taking on corporate law breaking. When I was chair, they voted to support actions that would prevent big pharma and big middlemen from illegally jacking up the price of life-saving drugs. They voted to protect workers from corporate abuse. They voted to protect small businesses from predation. So what does it mean if you're trying to fire them?
What's your take?
Well, look, I think for months now, we've all been watching this extraordinary display of CEOs and executives that are defendants in lawsuits from the government, make the pilgrimage to the White House or Mar-a-Lago, make huge donations to the president or his allies or family members. And a lot of us have been wondering, what does this mean? Does this mean that the government is then going to back off from standing up against corporations that are violating the law and abusing working Americans?
Yeah.
Does it mean that the government's going to start handing out some sweetheart deals? And these illegal firings, to me, are just one more very disturbing sign in that direction.
Because if you look at other countries where antitrust law is weaker, you do see it. You see it in Hungary, you see it in India, you see it in Turkey, you see it in these places where, even in Greece, where corporate influence does work its way into government that way. So antitrust is a thing that's been around in this country for a long time, interpreted slightly differently at different times by different administrations, but the feeling is the same. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you don't have competition in business, bad things happen. New businesses can't start, entrants can't come into the market, and consumers get messed around. Why are we moving? What's your sense of the influence of this corporate money and these people on antitrust legislation in the United States?
Well, look, I think many people would agree that for far too long, corporations have had too much sway over our government. And that's partly because we, 40 years ago, took a very hands-off approach to antitrust and to enforcing the law against big businesses. During the last 4 years, we started doing a pivot away from that hands-off approach.
Right, you didn't actually change a lot of law. You just decided you're going to enforce laws.
We just started enforcing the laws that were on the books and doing so in a faithful way to what Congress wanted. And, you know, it's going to take time, and we needed more time to keep pushing. But absolutely, the essence of the idea here is that if you allow corporations to consolidate power, they can use that power economically to inflate prices, to suppress wages, to squeeze out small businesses, but they can also use that power politically.
Right.
In all sorts of ways. They can, you know, translate their economic power into political power through donations, through access. And I think at a very basic level, if what we care about is freedom and making sure that Americans enjoy real liberties, allowing big corporations to abuse people, to bully them, to coerce them, is so antithetical to that idea of freedom.
Right, so that's the connection. It's not just influence of money, it's actually tied to democracy. So if you're out there at one of these town halls or one of these rallies worrying about democracy and who's controlling it, which is weird because Elon Musk seems to be controlling a lot of what's going on, it's useful to understand that these things are all connected. When business has too much power, you lose it. It is a bit of a zero-sum game for democracy.
Absolutely. These businesses can get away with pushing you around, messing you around, and unless you have a strong government that's willing to hold those corporate lawbreakers to account, I think it accounts for why we're seeing tens of thousands of people come out.
Yep.
I mean, former colleague, Commissioner Bedoya, a couple of days ago spoke to 34,000 people in Colorado who had come out to express their anger.
There's no election going on.
There's no election. Their anger at the concentration of power. And when I was at the FTC, we almost served as a diary of how Americans were being treated in our economy. I mean, we would get hundreds of thousands of comments from people just sharing the indignities that they would face day to day, having to ration life-saving medicines, having to spend hours on the phone just trying to cancel a subscription that they want to escape, having these coercive non-compete clauses prevent them from changing jobs easily or starting their own business. And people want a government that's willing to fight for them, including when it means standing up to powerful corporations.
And they also need to understand that there are people doing this work behind the scenes, like the FTC, like the CFPB, who are doing this. Not maybe everybody didn't know about it all the time, but that work matters. Regulation actually matters, whether you know what these places are doing or not. But you will continue to make us know what they're doing. We appreciate you being here today.
Thanks so much.
Lena Khan is the former chair of the Federal Trade Commission. That does it for me. Thanks for watching. Stay right where you are. Inside with Jen Psaki begins right now.
Okay, Donald Trump spent the week attacking judges and continuing to ignore court orders. And unfortunately, history doesn't really offer us a guide here. Lucky for us, Congressman Jamie Raskin is probably the best guide you could hope for, and he's coming up first. Plus, Bernie Sanders and AOC turn out more than 80,000 people during a string of rallies out west. Congressman Greg Kazar joined them on stage yesterday in Arizona, and he's going to join me in just a few minutes. And later, the phrase conflict of interest doesn't even begin to describe what Elon Musk is up to. We'll talk about why Tesla is struggling big time right now and how Musk is trying to use his co-presidency to help it. Okay, so right now, just to sum it up, I know you all have been paying very close attention, but Donald Trump is ignoring court orders. He's attacking every aspect of the legal system, including law firms, and he's standing by as threats against judges continue to rise. And I just want to start by stating perhaps what sounds extremely obvious here. This is not normal, and I mean by historical standards, too. I mean, ignoring a judge's order is not at all normal. Insulting and attacking a judge on social media or whatever form of communications there may have been at points in history is not normal. And calling for a judge's impeachment simply because you didn't like their ruling is definitely not normal. I mean, look, lots of presidents have been mad at lots of judges in the past throughout history. I mean, throughout history, both presidents of both parties have had courts rule against them. But none of them acted like Donald Trump. Let's go back to 1952. President Truman seized control of steel mills to make sure there was continued production during the Korean War. The Supreme Court said he acted unconstitutionally, which would make any president mad, right? Even irate. But did Truman ignore them? Did he call for the justices to be impeached? Of course not. He immediately ordered the return of the steel mills to their owners, even though their workers immediately went on strike. That takes us to 1974. The Supreme Court dealt a huge blow, of course, to President Nixon, ordering him to hand over the Watergate tapes. And Nixon complied, even though it was the nail in the coffin for his entire presidency. And I'm not excusing anything he did here, obviously. I'm making a different point. But he didn't call for the justices to step down. He actually stepped down himself. He didn't really have a choice, resigning from office only 2 weeks later. Then there was the time in 2006. The Supreme Court ruled that President George W. Bush overstepped his authority in ordering war crime trials for detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Yes, true. But listen to how Bush responded to that ruling at a press conference that very same day.
I haven't had a chance to fully review the findings of the Supreme Court. I want to assure you that we take them very seriously. I will protect the people and at the same time conform with the findings of the Supreme Court.
Look, I'm not excusing anything that led to that ruling, but the point here is he said, I will conform with the findings of the court. Haven't heard a whole lot of that lately, have we? In 2016, the Supreme Court blocked President Obama's immigration plan that would have shielded as many as 5 million parents from being deported. And it would have also helped them find legal work in the United States. He was frustrated and he was upset, believe me, but he abided by the ruling. Then there was the time in 2022 when the Supreme Court blocked the Biden administration from enforcing its vaccine or testing requirements for large private companies. This was, remember, kind of part of the height of COVID. Of course, Biden didn't agree with it. Believe me, he didn't agree with it. But here's what he said in response. The court has ruled that my administration cannot use the authority granted to it by Congress to require this measure. But that does not stop me from using my voice as president. Look, the point here is this. There have been moments in just about every presidency, Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, when a court ruled against the guy sitting in the Oval Office. None of these presidents liked the outcome, but they abided by the court's decision. And right now, Donald Trump is doing the opposite. By any standard, it certainly appears that he and his administration deliberately violated a court order when they flew hundreds of Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador to be imprisoned without any due process. That's what differentiates us as a country, by the way. And now they're stonewalling the judge, who's trying to find out if his order was willfully ignored. On Thursday, the judge accused the government of, quote, evading its obligations, saying their response had been woefully insufficient. And during a hearing on Friday, he put it like this: the government is not being terribly cooperative at this point. No kidding. And he also vowed to get to the bottom of whether they violated his order and who was responsible. This isn't just a squabble with the judge. The Trump administration is claiming, out loud by the way, that they're willing to defy a co-equal branch of government.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
This judge has no right to ask those questions. You have one unelected federal judge trying to control foreign policies, trying to control the Alien Enemies Act, which they have no business presiding over. The judge had no business, no power to do what he did. This judge had no right to do that.
Of course, the judge had every right to ask any questions he wanted. By the way, that's how the system works. This is the sound that we just heard of one branch of government basically giving the middle finger to another branch of government. That's what we're hearing. Trump and his administration are trying to overtake the courts. They're trying to become the arbiters of the law so they don't have to abide by it. They're trying to upend the separation of powers that have been separate for hundreds of years for a reason. And this isn't one of those times when bucking tradition and breaking norms is a good thing. Sometimes it is. This is actually dangerous. Threats against judges are on the rise in the form of, this is how it was described in the New York Times, bomb threats, anonymous calls to dispatch police SWAT teams to home addresses, even the delivery of pizzas, which is a seemingly innocuous prank, but one that carries a pretty clear message. They know where you and your family members live. And the administration has now turned to targeting tourists and legal immigrants who have expressed views that the government believes to threaten national security and undermine foreign policy. That's their argument. That's the kind of thing that will keep happening as Trump tries to wipe a branch of government that is the last line of defense. So we can see there's a problem here, to state the obvious, and we're faced with some tough questions. I mean, what is the solution? And what is our system able to do? And again, those are tricky questions to answer because his history, as I've noted here, doesn't exactly serve as a guide. Joining me now is Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. He is the perfect person to talk to about historical precedent, the moment we're in, all of the things. So let me just start with kind of where I ended there. I mean, you've said there's an attack on the Constitution. That feels very clear here. I think a question a lot of people have is, what can be done to stop it?
We got 125 cases that have been filed across the country, and 50 federal courts have already entered temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions against Trump. So let's start with the positive news that the courts are working, they're doing their job. That's why they're talking about impeaching all these federal judges. That's why they're attacking Judge Boasberg for insisting on answers, because you can't disobey an order of a federal court. As Chief Justice Roberts emphasized this week, the proper response to disagreement with the substance of a judicial opinion is to appeal the opinion, not to try to impeach the judge. Certainly not for people to go out and visit threats upon the judge and the judge's family. And so we've got to play these cases out in court. The Trump administration has just thrown caution to the winds. I mean, the great example of this, of course, is the birthright citizenship executive order. The first sentence of the 14th Amendment says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. It is just as plain as day. And we have Obama judges, Biden judges, Reagan judges, Trump judges, all striking down what Trump did. In fact, the Reagan judge said it was the easiest case he'd ever decided in his life. You don't have to be a lawyer to know what's wrong with you. You just have to know how to read. And in case after case, they say, you have just totally blown past the Constitution. So we've got to stand up for the independence of the judiciary. And we see this happening all over the world now, that when courts block an autocratic executive or someone with dictatorial ambitions, they begin to attack the judges, they attack the lawyers, they attack the law firms. That's what's happening in America right now. And so the whole country has got to stand up for the independence of the judiciary and for the rule of law.
I mean, I would note to your point, I mean, Trump called Judge Boasberg a, quote, radical left lunatic, among other things. He's had a 3-decade-long career. And apropos of nothing else, he was literally roommates with Justice Kavanaugh at Yale Law School. When you say people need to stand up, because part of what we're seeing here, especially in the case of these Venezuelan migrants, is he's defying he's ignoring the court order. So what does it mean? What can people actually do if he's ignoring what the judicial system is doing?
Well, the first attack in that case is on Congress, right? Because the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 says that the president does have the power to deport foreign nationals of hostile powers with which we are at war or who have invaded America. Well, it's Congress that has the power to declare war on Venezuela or anybody else. We have not declared war against Venezuela, so we're not at war with Venezuela, nor has there been a military invasion. And if you're just going to describe the presence of undocumented immigrants as a military invasion, then we've been invaded by 50 or 80 or 90 countries, and we're at war with the whole world. And I think that Judge Boasberg remarked upon what a breathtaking expansion of presidential authority that would be. But in any event, someone who's an originalist, who's a textualist, would stick with the actual statute, which says it's up to Congress to decide whether or not we're in war. So that's the first attack. But then after having blown right past the plain language of the statute, they're violating the due process rights of the people who are being deported. Now, if they're criminal gangbangers and they should be in prison for drug dealing or murder, then they should be in prison for murder or drug dealing. But we don't know who those people are. And families have come forward to say these people some of them have nothing to do with gangs, but we don't know. That's why the two most beautiful words in the English language are due process. As one of my professors once said, due process sorts out who's really guilty and who's not. We can all talk about lots of cases where in the rush of judgment, people are swept up and saying they did it, and then later it turns out they didn't do it, and they have to be released, and they put the real people in. That's why due process is so essential in our system of government.
No question. And that is one of the things I mentioned. It differentiates us. And a due process is, right, giving people the opportunity to defend themselves and to be participants in the court of law, which is he's not allowing for. That's part of the violation.
And also making sure that guilty people don't escape.
That's true, too. It's both. Let me ask, and you're the expert here. I'm just agreeing with you. Let me ask, so Judge Boasberg had a hearing on Friday. We all watched that. He said he will get to the bottom of whether the administration violated his order. I just give a little outline of that. Tomorrow, the D.C. Circuit Court will hear the administration's appeal. This story is really horrifying people for good reason. What should people expect? What happens next? What happens after this hearing on Monday? What are you watching for?
Well, again, until we got into this very gloomy, uncertain moment in American history, it was taken for granted by everybody across the spectrum that you follow the orders of a court. And if you disagree with it, you appeal to the next level up. You go to in this case, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and then you go to the Supreme Court. That's the right way to deal with it. You don't unleash personal attacks on the judge. You don't try to impeach the judge. I mean, I've looked at it. There have been 15 cases of judicial impeachment in American history. It's for stuff like corruption, taking bribes on the bench, or habitual drunkenness. Not even like one day's drunkenness, okay? Habitual drunkenness, but it's serious misconduct. It has nothing to do with doctrinal differences. It has nothing to do with your interpretation of this statute or the meaning of this constitutional provision. We're moving into very dangerous territory where they're saying, you agree with us as to what the law means, and we're going to offer some startlingly original new interpretations. You agree with us, and if you don't, we're going to impeach you.
It's pretty startling. I have so many things I could ask you about, but I just want to know, because you were just telling me before this, you just did a town hall meeting in a Republican district yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
You were saying 800 or 900 people showed up. Really a powerful show. Are you going to do more of these moving forward?
Absolutely. Well, I was up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, with Susan Wild and my colleague Mary Gay Scanlon, and that was fantastic. People are so grateful that they're members of Congress who come when their own member can't quite squeeze it into their schedule to make it.
Their schedule, yes.
And so, look, there's a significant national conversation taking place right now about this full-blown assault on American democratic institutions. Everybody's part of it. People in blue districts, people in red districts, people in swing districts, in the urban areas, in the rural areas. We're all part of this together because our entire constitutional democracy is now under siege.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you for explaining both the law to us and also being out there in all these districts. It's always great to see you.
It's great to see you, Jen.
And coming up, the crowd's turning out to see Bernie Sanders and AOC just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Congressman Greg Casar was on stage with them yesterday at a massive rally in Arizona, and he's going to join me next.
Let's go for a walk, Leo. We're going to go for a walk. We would go on our daily walks. He would struggle when he was having bowel movements. There would be neighbors walking outside during that moment. It was really embarrassing. And ever since we introduced him to the farmer's dog, it's changed his quality of life.
Leo's number 2s are really getting better.
Better poo, better you.
That's a good boy, Leo.
If you're living with diabetes, I'll tell you the same thing I tell my patients. Getting on Dexcom G7 is one of the easiest ways to take better control of your diabetes and help protect yourself from the long-term health problems it can cause. This small wearable replaces finger sticks, lowers A1C, and it's covered by Medicare.
Not managing your diabetes really affects your health for the future. The older you get, the more complications you're going to see.
I knew I couldn't ignore my diabetes anymore because it was causing my eyesight to go bad.
Before the Dexcom G7, doctor's appointments were not something I looked forward to.
For my patients, getting on Dexcom G7 is the biggest eye-opener they've ever had.
When I got Dexcom G7, I couldn't believe how easy it was. This small wearable sends my glucose numbers right to my phone or my receiver. With just a glance, I can see if I'm going high, low, or steady, so I can quickly get my glucose under control and better protect myself from complications. My A1C is down to 5.8.
Call now to get started on the most accurate and most recommended CGM brand. You'll also get a free discussion guide for your next doctor's visit.
Dexcom G7 has changed my life for the better. Now I'm a superstar. My A1C is 5.7.
My A1C has never been lower. I go swimming, I ride my exercise bike, and I play with my grandkids. I finally have my life back.
My wife used to worry about me having diabetes before my Dexcom G7, but now she doesn't worry as much because she knows.
It gives me a lot of peace of mind. I want him to be around for.
No other CGM system is more affordable for Medicare patients. Don't miss out. You may be entitled to this valuable benefit. Call the number on your screen now to talk to a real person.
Zyrtec Allergy Relief works fast and lasts a full 24 hours, so Dave can be the
deliverer of dance.
Okay, Dave. Let's be more than our allergies. Z's the day with Zyrtec.
For plant-based healthy blood pressure support, there's one brand at Walmart that stands above the rest. It's Super Beets. Discover why more cardiologists recommend Super Beets for heart health support than any other beet brand at superbeets.com.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I'm skeptical, so I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies or call 1-800-513-7100. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month. A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
Listen, put that guy in an ad, Democrats. Blast it out on social media. Take that video on the campaign trail with you. Show it to your neighbors, your grandma, whomever. Because, yeah, that guy was Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary and multi-billionaire Howard Lutnick, gabbing with two other rich guys about how only fraudsters will complain if they lose their Social Security checks. Guys, calling that out of touch would be kind of an understatement, but a huge understatement, maybe the understatement of the century. Because obviously for millions of Americans, Social Security isn't a luxury. It's the difference between paying rent or being evicted, having groceries or not. But when an administration is stocked with guys like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and apparently Howard Lutnick, that kind of detachment from reality isn't a bug, seems to be more of a feature. And across the country, people are sending a very clear message. They don't like a bunch of billionaires screwing around with stuff they depend on. On Thursday, over 3,000 people packed a venue in Las Vegas to see Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's the biggest crowd Sanders has ever drawn in Vegas, even bigger than when he was running for president. Then they headed to, and I said 3,000, it's more like 30,000, I think. Tempe, Arizona, back in 2015 when Bernie was a presidential candidate, his biggest crowd was just over 11,000 on. On Thursday, he turned out 15,000 people. The rally was so packed, even the overflow had an overflow, which is always a sign of interest. Here you can see dozens of people standing in a nearby parking garage to just catch a glimpse. That's Taylor Swift-like. Now, in Greeley, Colorado, where just over 100,000 people live, more than 11,000 people turned out for a rally on Friday. On Friday night in Denver, Bernie and AOC spoke to a crowd of 34,000 people. 34,000! That's the largest crowd Bernie Sanders has ever drawn. It's an enormous, enormous crowd. And yesterday, they were back in Arizona and turned out another 23,000 people, which brought them to a grand total of 86,000 people across 5 events. We should note all of these numbers were provided by the Sanders team, but the images do speak for themselves. You can see how crowded these events are. Now, call me a cynic, but I don't think there's any amount of missed Social Security checks that could make Donald Trump lose much sleep. But these crowd sizes, we know how he feels about crowd sizes. That may get a little bit of his attention. Maybe he's watching the video. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Greg Casar of Texas. He's the chair of the Progressive Caucus, and he was with Bernie Sanders and AOC at that rally in Tucson just yesterday. Now, Congressman, I just showed a bunch. I probably butchered some of the numbers there, but the point is tens of thousands of people are showing up at these rallies, which is tremendous. We've seen massive crowds at this Bernie Sanders Fighting Oligarchy Tour is what it's called, bigger than some of his presidential rallies. You were there. What was it like on the ground?
It was really incredible. And Jen, let's be honest, right? Last time we were talking about how immediately following Trump's reelection, we did not see the level of grassroots energy that we saw 8 years ago. But now I think this is the answer. The energy is back. And the most important thing that elected Democrats can be doing right now is supporting this energy and channeling it in the short term to pressure House Republicans to stop doing so much damage to everyday people. In the medium term, it's what can help us take back the House of Representatives. I believe we could do it by big margins. And then in the longer term, to transform the Democratic Party into the kind of party that not only defeats Trump and Musk, but defeats the kind of ideas that created them in the first place.
No question about it. And you're right. When we were talking about it, there were kind of, I would call them green shoots of hope out there, right? There were people showing up at town halls and asking questions. And it was like, what is this a sign of? How significant? And this is a whole different thing. I mean, one of the things that motivates, I think, is when Trump and people working in his administration say crazy, insane things like what Howard Lutnick said about Social Security. I mean, it kind of encapsulates, I think, why people are so angry right now. I mean, what did you hear when you heard it? And do you feel like that kind of thing and pointing it out to people could become part of the rallying cry?
Look, there were so many people at these rallies who had never come to a political event before in their life. There were people at these rallies who said, you know, I heard Bernie talking about how the billionaires were running the government behind the curtain before. But now you've got goons like Lutnick, billionaires out doing it in public, talking about taking your grandmother's Social Security check. You have Elon Musk, the richest person on earth, bragging on social media every day about taking your money for himself. And so, look, when I got invited to this rally in Tucson, we were supposed to be in the high school gym. And we thought it would be great if we could fill a whole high school gym. The line for that gym wrapped not around the school, didn't wrap around the block, it wrapped around the next block and the next block, and it took over the entire high school football field. So that anger and the energy is there, and what people want to see from Democrats is that we're willing to stand and fight for them. And I think that if we stand and fight, that courage will inspire courage. People can knock doors, organize their workplaces, organize town halls, organize their neighborhoods, and drive this into the huge amount of turnout and popular backlash against oligarchy and big money that we need right now. And I think that message brings together all the segments of the Democratic Party and even brings in those independent and disaffected voters that may disagree with me and some people watching at home on this social issue or that one, but believe fundamentally that working people should have a better shot in the economy and that the billionaires shouldn't be running the government.
Most of the majority, overwhelming majority of people attending these rallies are really excited and happy. There have been a couple of Democrats who have received sort of, you know, frustrated responses from what they see in Washington. Not that it's the fault of some of these people who are showing up at them at all, or the members who are showing up. But obviously there's a lot of anger right now in the party toward Chuck Schumer after his decision to back that Republican spending bill. And some Democrats have reportedly been voicing support for alternatives here, but also for Congressman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who you were just at a rally with, to primary him when he's up for re-election. Would you like to see that happen?
Look, I have enormous respect for Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, and I think really the questions about what she wants to run for in her future for her, but to the point about voters feeling upset, I feel upset too, and it should be no surprise. I mean, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, it's like they put together a list of things that would piss off ordinary Americans. Destroy Social Security, destroy Medicaid, fire veterans, shred the Constitution, try to impeach judges that try to do their jobs. And they said, let's do all the above. So of course, people are very, very upset. And then they're upset that some of the pundit class and some of the Democratic leaders, and I exclude you here on the pundit class from this point, Jen, have literally said, roll over and play dead. I mean, which Republican members of Congress, when Joe Biden was in power, went and told their voters that were angry, roll over and play dead? No way. And so I think there's a real dividing line right now between the roll over and play dead sort of old school punditry and the stand and fight voters. And I think that if Democrats follow our voters, that's the way to go. And I think the voters will win out in that argument.
Voters are pretty loud right now. I think they're a smart group to follow. Before I let you go, we don't have that much time left, but tell us, you've been doing these rallies. What's next for the House Progressive Caucus?
Well, Jen, I'm happy that I can maybe make a little bit of news here on your show because we have all of these progressive members of Congress that we are just about to fan out all across the country and go do town halls in Republican districts. House Speaker Mike Johnson told his Republican members of Congress, don't do town halls. So we're going to call it the Democrats Show Up campaign. And I was invited to Chip Roy's district this coming weekend, and I'll be there. I don't know if Chip will be there, but I'm excited to talk to those voters. Whether we agree on everything or not doesn't matter, as much as showing up and letting them know we care about their pocketbook issues.
No question. Showing up, answering questions, being present. That's a big part of being a representative, right? Congressman Greg Kazar,
Representative is the job.
That's right. That's literally the job. Thank you so much for joining me. I always enjoyed talking to you. Really appreciate it. And coming up, today Chuck Schumer rejected calls to step down as the Democratic leader in the Senate during an interview on Meet the Press, but I sure hope he's learned a couple of lessons for the fights that lie ahead, which is what we should all be focused on. I've got some thoughts about that when we come right back.
I think I changed my mind about these glasses.
Yeah, it happens. That's why VisionWorks gives you 100 days to change your mind. It's simple. Anything else I can help you with?
Like what?
VisionWorks. See the difference.
Here's to getting better with age.
Cheers to beating these two every Thursday.
Help fuel today with Boost High Protein. Complete nutrition you need and the flavor you love. So here's to now. Now available Boost Max.
Asthma. Does it have you missing out on what you love and who you love? Get back to better breathing with Fasenra, an add-on treatment for eosinophilic asthma taken once every 8 weeks. Fasenra is not for sudden breathing problems. Serious allergic reactions may occur. Get help for swelling of your face, mouth, tongue, or trouble breathing. Don't stop your asthma treatments without talking with your doctor. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens or you have a parasitic infection. Headache and sore throat may occur. Ask your doctor if Fasenra is right for you.
Trains. Trains that use the power of Dell AI and Intel, clearing the way so you arrive exactly where you belong.
For plant-based healthy blood pressure support, there's one brand at Walmart that stands above the rest. It's Super Beets. Discover why more cardiologists recommend Super Beets for heart health support than any other beet brand at superbeets.com.
Consumer Cellular, ranked #1 in network coverage and customer satisfaction.
Hi, my friend Linda has you guys and gets way better coverage than I do.
Sounds like Linda has you beat.
Only in coverage.
And plans start at $20.
Okay, price too.
Call or visit Consumer Cellular to switch today.
Zyrtec Allergy Relief works fast and lasts a full 24 hours, so Dave can be the
deliverer of dance.
Okay, Dave. Let's be more than our allergies. Z's the day with Zyrtec.
Liberty Mutual is all she talks about since we saved hundreds by bundling our home and auto insurance.
Liberty.
Hey, kid. It's pronounced Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty.
Liberty.
Now she's mocking me. Very mature.
Hey, that's enough, you two.
Hey, I'm not the one acting like a total baby.
She's two.
Only paid for what you need.
Liberty, liberty, liberty. Liberty.
Hi, I'm Jay Jackson. For almost 20 years, Abacus Life has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors. And in just seconds, you can use the free calculator at abacuspays.com to learn what your policy might be worth.
For many of my clients, selling their life insurance to Abacus was right for them and their estate plan.
Don't sell or lapse your policy without going to abacuspays.com first. There are no fees and no obligations. Get the real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert, doing everything while you do your thing. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax.
I was never able to find a bra that fit my small chest. Every bra gave me gaps, so I designed a bra that finally fits AA to B cups perfectly. No more cup gaps or looking 2 sizes bigger. Meet Pepper. Find your perfect fit at wearpepper.com.
Got to feel in heaven when my lover's near.
Okay, so when something gets massively bungled, one of the best things you can do is figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen the same way again, right? It's kind of a life lesson thing. So as we look back on Chuck Schumer's decision to quickly cave to a Republican funding deal, I think there are quite a few lessons to take away, and most importantly, focus on what happens next. First of all, there's a reason Nancy Pelosi reacted to the whole episode like this.
It is about what comes next. I myself don't give away anything for nothing. And I think that's what happened the other day.
Don't give away something for nothing is a pretty good guide for the strategy moving forward. I mean, we're all going to move forward here, but that's a pretty good guide. And when she said, as she said, it's really about what comes next. The question now though, is how Democrats can avoid caving to Republican demands in the future, like massive cuts to Medicaid and SNAP benefits, while somehow leaving Republicans without any apparent political scrape on them at all from that. So to me, there are two big lessons from that recent funding fight. And the first one is this. Democratic leadership seemed to be assuming that Speaker Mike Johnson would fail. I mean, according to a number of Democrats I've spoken with over the last week, there was an assumption that the right flank of the Republican caucus might once again refuse to vote for the funding bill. I mean, that's what happened last September. That would have given the Democrats leverage to negotiate, but that didn't happen. Problem is, there didn't seem to be, at least not clear to all of us, a plan for that not happening. So, lesson one, don't assume Republican failure will save the day. I mean, this is the MAGA party. The MAGA leader is literally sitting in the White House. And now, even the usual Republican fringy holdouts seem to be willing to do whatever he says. The other assumption that was wrong was that staying quiet, pretty quiet, and keeping everything mostly behind the scenes was going to result in a better outcome. First of all, Schumer didn't even seem to keep the Democratic leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, fully in the loop. Never mind his own caucus in the Senate. They could have held meetings with Democratic leadership in both chambers weeks in advance. They could have done that with the whole caucus. They could have developed a public strategy to back the Republicans in Congress into a tougher corner. But they didn't do that either. They could have pushed much harder for a totally clean bill, publicly. One that didn't include any of the poisonous cuts that were in the final package. Doesn't mean they would have gotten that, but they would have helped win the public argument. They could have shouted that from the rooftops. And that would have allowed Democrats to at least put the blame on Republicans for the cuts that did end up in a final bill. And would have given Democrats in office, or even those running for office, or even those attending all these town halls, more to use as rallying cries at these town halls and events. Republicans are trying to cut your Medicaid. We just want to keep the government open. Try that on for size. Not so bad. But instead, it all kind of felt like a surprise to most people, and including the Democratic caucus. And now lots of Democrats across the country are understandably pissed off. I was just talking to Congressman Kazar about this, because they didn't see a plan to fight back. So in the end, Speaker Marietta Pelosi is right. No surprise. Schumer really did give up something for nothing. And Schumer seems to think that that's just inevitable, or that's what he seems to be saying, when you're the minority party in Congress.
Do you acknowledge that Democrats didn't get anything in this fight, Leader Schumer?
Well, what we got at the end of the day is avoiding the horror of a shutdown. There was no leverage point that we could have asked for things. They just would have said no, and because they controlled, but let's not forget, they control the House and Senate, they could force a vote, yes or no, on the CR without any additions.
Now, it's true, as Schumer said. The minority party, which is where the Democrats are in both the House and Senate, they don't have a lot of legislative leverage at all. But they need to create some leverage, different kinds of leverage. They may not have the majority, but they have the power of building public support. I mean, 80,000 people have shown up to meetings held by Bernie Sanders and AOC over the last couple days. There is public support. Lay out the strategy. Lay out what Republicans are trying to do and how it would impact people. And there are opportunities coming up to do just that. We can all move forward. I mean, later this spring, Republicans are probably going to try and extend tax cuts for high-income individuals and corporations. And there will be another funding fight when this all expires in September, in the fall. And Democrats will need to take those lessons into those fights, or they're going to get run over. And I don't just mean in Congress, I mean publicly. Look, I know there's been a lot of focus on whether the Democratic leader thinks the country is in a constitutional crisis or not. It's an important question. Chuck Schumer started the week by saying we weren't, ended it by saying that we were. That's progress. But frankly, what matters more than how he labels it is what he's going to do about it and what he's going to do next time. We'll be right back.
Trains. trains that use the power of Dell AI and Intel, clearing the way so you arrive exactly where you belong.
At this very moment, children at St. Jude are fighting to survive. With a gift right now, you can join the battle to save lives.
Without St. Jude, I don't know where we would be. They have given children with cancer like mine, Winston, a chance.
She has neuroblastoma, and it has spread to her liver. I try to enjoy every minute with her because I do not know when would be my last moments with her.
When you support St. Jude and give $19 a month, you can help make cures possible for kids with cancer. St. Jude provides customized care for some of the world's sickest children. Please call, go online, or scan the QR code right now. Together, we can save more lives.
Just that feeling that was like so hard on your heart that it's not gonna live. Every day now, it's like a gift.
For just $19 a month, you can make a difference. Please become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
Those that donate, it's more than a miracle for me. It's more than a blessing. They have done so much for me and my family.
Join with your credit or debit card for only $19 a month, and we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt you can proudly wear to show your support.
All these children deserve to live, and I would love for it to be the day where no other family has to fear losing their child to cancer. You've given us hope.
Please don't wait until the last minute. Make your donation now to help St. Jude save lives.
Ever since we introduced him to the farmer's dog, it's changed his quality of life.
Leo's number 2s are really getting better.
Better poo, better you.
That's a good boy, Leo.
Okay, remember the deal. 4 lines on Verizon, $25 each.
And iPhone 16 Pro.
We all get one. It's not on us, it is on them. I'm going in.
Hi, we're here for
the
the
unlimited plan, $25 a line.
Yeah, and
iPhone 16 Pro, one for each of you.
Yeah, but it's
on us. We got you.
right now, every family gets our best price. $25 a line and iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence. Get 4 on us. Only on Verizon. that was actually easier than we thought.
In June of 2023, Chuck Schumer sat down with New York Times reporters Annie Carney and Luke Broadwater for their new book. Here's my hope, Schumer told them. After this election, when the Republican Party expels the turd of Donald Trump, it will go back to being the old Republican Party. Well, obviously neither of those things happened, and ever since Trump got back into office, this Republican Party has given up all sorts of congressional powers to serve him. They ignored the requirement for Trump to tell Congress about firing government watchdogs. They literally voted to give up their own power to serve as a check on Trump's tariffs. And they've all but ceded their constitutional spending power to Trump and Elon Musk. And as for Chuck Schumer, to this day, he's still clinging to the hope that Republicans will come around somehow.
I think if we fight, as I said, we can make Donald Trump the quickest lame duck in recent history. His Republican colleagues will want to abandon him and will do very, very well in the 2026 election.
Guys, I don't know who needs to hear this, and Democrats may do very, very well in the 2026 election, but the old Republican Party is gone. It isn't coming back. Everyone needs to know that. Joining us now are Annie Carney and Luke Broadwater. They're both correspondents for the New York Times and authors of the brand new book coming out Tuesday. I have a gallery copy here. I feel so special. Madhouse, How Donald Trump, MAGA Mean Girls, a former used car salesman, a Florida Nepo baby, and a man with rats in his walls broke Congress. If that title doesn't want people to make people want to go out and order this book, I don't know what will. It's so topical right now because I think a lot of people are trying to understand, like, how the hell did we get here? And what is the Republican Party coming back? And what is happening in a branch of government? You guys cover it every day. You wrote an entire book about it where there's chapters about individual numbers people need to understand. But let me start, I just want to start with Chuck Schumer, because I think he's just such an interesting character in this, too. I mean, that quote was from nearly 2 years ago for your book, that's in your book. You've seen his recent interviews. Do you think Democrats don't realize the Republican Party isn't going back to the normal Republican Party?
I think there's a split, and this is really a true. We interviewed Schumer a few times for the book, and he always came back to this idea that if the Republican Party can just expel Trump, it will revert. When the Senate last year failed to pass the border security package that included funding for Ukraine, he told me afterwards about 10 senators are truly anti-Ukraine, but the other 20, once Trump isn't pulling in that direction, they would vote yes for this. But there's no evidence to back that up. Like, the new senators coming in are like J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley. And so Schumer is really I don't know if it's just he wants that to be true, but other senators talked to us for the book, like Chris Murphy, who even back then in 2023 was saying, you know, I understand Chuck's argument. I don't agree with it. There's something like rotten in the core of this party. And our book is looking at these House Republicans, really, who have taken, really the first MAGA Congress, who have taken Trumpism and made it all their own. So, like, if you kind of want to understand how we got where we are today, for 4 years when Trump was out of power, these characters in Congress acted as his sword and shield, kept MAGA alive, and have made it their own brand and taken it to new heights, like even maybe beyond where he goes. So I don't know what evidence there is to back up that there's anyone who wants to. And we saw in this Congress all of the quote-unquote old Republicans fleeing, not even finishing their terms, fleeing for the exits. So there's really not a lot of facts to back up the idea that it's coming back.
There are so many examples, as I mentioned, just like chapters have focuses on different members, which kind of tells the story of some people's evolution. I mean, Ken Buck, was a very conservative member of Congress, and then retired early. You talk about him in here. You talk about the evolution of Nancy Mace in here. Why did you use those examples? Let me ask you, Luke. I think I know why, but I think they're particularly good ones
Those
to
are
tell
two
people at
very
the party.
telling examples. Ken Buck was one of the founders of the House Freedom Caucus, right? The farthest right caucus in the House. He has an AR-15, or had an AR-15 mounted
Probably still does.
on his office wall.
In some
This is a very conservative man. But he actually was too out of step with MAGA to survive in the current environment, right? He ends up getting forced out of Congress, essentially, because he won't go along with the lies about January 6th. The other person at issue, Nancy Mace, there are several chapters dedicated to her evolution. And she goes from being a Trump skeptic, sort of maybe a moderate voice in the House, to full-blown MAGA. And what's incredible about this, and she talked mostly to Annie for the book, was she sort of narrates her political evolution. She says out loud, I have no future if I stay anti-Trump in the Republican Party.
Right. We know where Nancy Mace is now, and we know that she's someone who likes attention. But we really were talking to her throughout as she talked out loud, I'm in a complicated space. How do I move up and be anti-Trump? You know, the reality is no one is doing that because it might be actually impossible. So she chose the easy route, which was to just flip completely and become full MAGA. We talked to her in the summer of when Trump was not yet locked up the nomination. And she said, if Trump is the nominee, I will pull myself down from the airwaves. I will just disappear. Well, that hasn't happened.
That is not. I mean, we pulled this. I was just looking for the quote we pulled. I can't move. This is from your book. I can't move forward and move up and be anti-Trump. That's just not where the country is. If I want to have a career going forward, then I have some decisions I have to make, which is literally telling people she's evolving for her own political survival, which is why it's such an interesting character to.
She was a fascinating character to spend time with because she's kind of just saying the quiet part out loud. Like that quote, we've seen basically the entire party do that. Look at the reality, want a political future, and change. But she actually kind of just says it and tells us why she's doing it out loud. So that was really...
It's still startling. Yeah. Let me ask you, Lou, before I let you guys go. I know you're going to do a million interviews. I'm so honored you're here first. The question I often get is like, what happens now? Because there's this assumption of like, oh, when Trump ends his term, then they'll be on to something else, which I think is the wrong assumption. And we're not going back to the Mitt Romneys, probably leading the Republican Party. What do you tell people to that?
Yeah, and I think that point is the point Chuck Schumer was making, right? He was saying that he called Trump in an interview for our book an evil sorcerer who had cast a spell over all these Republicans. But what we really found out reporting this book is that MAGA has become bigger and broader than Trump. Yes, he brought it to the party, but each member that we talked to has embraced MAGA and made it their own, and kind of, in some cases, made it a more extreme version of MAGA than even Trump in some cases. And so I think if you think MAGA is going away at the end of this 4 years, you're misreading the Republican Party.
I got a bridge to sell you or something, maybe. Annie Carney, Luke Bradard, congratulations. Your book comes out Tuesday. Madhouse. People can pre-order it now. If anybody out there watching is like, what the hell's happening with the Republican Party and how did we get here? It's a perfect book to read. Thank you both so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And coming up, just how far will Elon Musk go to save his struggling car company? I don't really know. I'm going to try to talk to you about it, though. We might have just gotten a big, scary hint. I'll explain when we come back.
Lumify?
It's kind of amazing. Wow. Lumify eye drops dramatically reduce redness.
In 1 minute.
And look at the difference. My eyes look brighter and whiter for up to 8 hours. Lumify really works.
See for yourself. You want to feel great about your skin? Get ready to go from this to this. Crepe Erase has been delivering life-changing results to women like you and me for a decade.
Crepe Erase by the Body Firm is a revolutionary system designed to target the visible signs of crepey skin on your body.
This isn't just skincare, it's your new secret weapon.
With over a decade of proven results, Crepe Erase has been trusted by over 2 million customers. Crepe Erase, formulated with our proprietary True Firm complex, helps restore elasticity to thin, crepey skin and revitalizes skin's natural collagen so your skin looks and feels like it did when it was younger.
I recommend Crepe Erase to my patients because I've seen it work. This is a system that actually delivers the results that it promises.
That's why it's the #1 selling anti-aging body treatment system for dry, crepey skin.
I've been using it for over a decade because it makes me feel confident and it helps the skin on my body look ageless and beautiful.
Crepe Erase is already an incredible deal at only $49.95. But to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, we'll also send you 2 free gifts. First, it's the Body Firm Skin Revitalizing Tool, the perfect trifecta of heat, vibration, and light therapy to promote more radiant, vibrant, and healthy-looking skin.
It's free. That's right, free when you order today.
Next, it's Body Firm's new antioxidant wellness beauty blend, formulated to enhance skin hydration and boost elasticity from the inside out.
Get all this, a $258 value for only $49.95, plus free shipping.
And every order comes with our 60-day money-back guarantee.
That youthful, healthy-looking, gorgeous skin that you think you've lost, it's waiting for you. Crepe Erase is how you get it back.
This incredible offer is not available anywhere else. So call or go to thebodyfirm.com right now.
Whether you're in your 40s or 50s,
or your 60s or beyond,
Crepe Erase works.
With the Chase mobile app, things move a little more smoothly. Deposit checks easily and send money quickly. That's convenience from Chase.
This one goes better with the walls.
This is so much easier than the home improvement store.
So which would you recommend?
Do you like brown?
Yeah, some things are just better at home. With Empire's Home Floor Advantage, you can compare samples in your own space. Plus, we'll be here to help you with every step of the process.
Call or visit EmpireToday.com and get the Home Floor Advantage.
It really is better at home.
Empire Today.
Men tell us when they use Just for Men to eliminate gray, there's a great before and after. Then there's the after. That boost you get when you look and feel your best. And that's why more men choose Just for Men.
The first time you try Bounce, it hits you. Your laundry feels way fresher, softer. So you start to wonder, if I put a sheet of Bounce on the finance guy, will it make him softer? Bounce can't do it all. But for better laundry...
So when Elon Musk isn't reposting fascist conspiracy theories, which he carves out a lot of time for, and when he's not targeting Social Security recipients or veterans or cancer and AIDS patients, he's actually acting as a CEO of multiple companies, remember? And guys, business has really not been great lately for one of them. This week, Tesla had to recall nearly all of its Cybertrucks to repair panels that fell off. Protests and boycotts against Tesla have broken out all across the country in opposition to Musk and what he's doing to the federal government. And that anger at Musk isn't just here in the United States. In Germany, where Musk promoted a far-right political party, Tesla has seen a 76% drop in sales for the month compared to 2024, 76%. And in China, which is Tesla's second largest market and home to its largest production facility, the company is now being threatened by more efficient and affordable competition. Now, considering all of that, you'd be right to guess that Tesla stock isn't exactly at its peak right now. But you still might be surprised to learn that Tesla's shares have plunged a dropping 50% in just 3 months. And the stock is tanking despite the American government doing everything it can to prop Elon Musk up. And yes, that effort included the President of the United States turning the White House front lawn into a Tesla dealership. And this week, that effort included the U.S. Commerce Secretary going on national television to tell people to buy Tesla stock.
I think if you want to learn something on this show tonight, buy Tesla. It's unbelievable that this guy's stock is this cheap. It'll never be this cheap again.
They are, quite publicly and quite brazenly, doing everything they can to help Elon Musk. And I guess the question is, just how far will they and Elon Musk go? Because a guy whose company is spiraling has managed to embed himself in our government in a way that remains truly shocking. I mean, he's free to move about wherever and access almost anything and whatever he wants. The New York Times reported Thursday that the Pentagon had set up a briefing for Musk on details of the U.S. plan in case of war with China. Now, it's pretty unclear why an unelected billionaire would ever need to receive a briefing like that. And after that report came out, the New York Times administration officials then denied it. Even Donald Trump himself insisted that he didn't clear Musk to see any secret war plans. And he also explained why it would be a problem.
I don't want to show that to anybody, but certainly you wouldn't show it to a businessman who is helping us so much. He's a great patriot. He's paying a big price for helping us cut costs, and he's doing a great job. He's finding tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. But I certainly wouldn't want, Elon has businesses in China, and he would be susceptible perhaps to that.
I mean, when Donald Trump can point to a conflict of interest, boy, it's probably a conflict of interest. And again, China's the second largest market for Tesla, and Tesla is not doing well there. So yeah, I'd say Elon Musk seeing top secret war plans with China might not be a great idea. It sure seems like they only backtracked in giving him that briefing after the New York Times reported on it. Which then begs the question, what else is Elon Musk trying to do that we actually don't know about? What are the things he's trying that the New York Times isn't exposing before he does it? That's a very scary question to think about. But what does seem clear is that a flailing billionaire with endless international interests is pushing himself as far as he can into every piece of the United States government. And at this point, I wouldn't put anything past him. We'll be right back.
Kids, I'm sure you're wondering why your mother and I asked you here tonight.
We're not going to the universe?
Are we not going to go to school anymore?
We won a lottery?
We did win the lottery. The all-you-can-eat lottery. I want to eat a lottery of this.
We have to stop Ursula from taking control of
Boom.
Zyrtec allergy relief works fast and lasts a full 24 hours, so Dave can be the
Deliverer of dance.
Okay, Dave. Let's be more than our allergies. Z's the day with Zyrtec.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-714-2088. That's 1-800-714-2088.
Wait,
Noom has GLP-1 meds now?
Noom, the psychology-based weight loss company?
Yes, Noom combines medication and behavior change so you can lose the weight and keep it off.
And it starts at just $149.
Noom, the smart way to lose weight.
I think I changed my mind about these glasses.
Yeah, it happens. That's why VisionWorks gives you 100 days to change your mind. It's simple. Anything else I can help you with?
Huh? Like what?
VisionWorks. See the difference.
It's time to feed the dogs real food in the right amount. A healthy weight can help dogs live a longer, happier life. The Farmer's Dog makes weight management easy.
Thanks for coming
with fresh
over.
food pre-portioned for your dog's needs. It's an idea whose time has come.
This is the Emirates Premium Economy seat.
Take care.
Economy. Perhaps they need to call it something else.
Oh no!
James P. Sullivan at
Our
your
water
service.
line broke. It can cost a fortune to get a contractor to come fix it, and it's not covered by homeowners insurance.
That's why you should have HomeServe.
It's emergency.
Your water line breaks, HomeServe sends a qualified contractor to fix it and pays for the covered repairs.
With HomeServe, the American dream of owning a home doesn't need to be a nightmare.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-888-246-2612 or visit homeserve.com.
What I'm about to share is something we don't talk about often enough, so I'm just going to say it. We apply deodorant to our armpits every day. It's a part of the routine, right? So why do we put up with odors on other parts of our body between showers? It's time you discovered Lumi Whole Body Deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. I tried it, and I noticed a difference right away. Everywhere. You won't realize the body odor you've just been living with until you try Lumi and it's gone. Give Lumi Whole Body Deodorant a try. Start controlling your body odor better, everywhere.
Okay, that's going to do it for me today, but we're already working on a great show for tomorrow night I'm really excited about. I'm going to be joined by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's looking to chart a national path forward for Democrats as they try to counter Donald Trump. We'll talk about that. Plus, California Senator Adam Schiff is going to stop by to talk about the state of Democratic leadership in Washington right now. That's all coming up tomorrow night at 8 p.m. For now, stay right where you are because there's much more news coming up on MSNBC.
This hour, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. She'll react to what Attorney General Pam Bondi just said about her this morning. You will want to hear what was said and the response. Good day to all of you from MSNBC World Headquarters here in New York. Welcome, everyone, to Alex Witt Reports. We begin with President Donald Trump ordering the Justice Department to open investigations into lawyers who sue the government. Trump issued a memo Friday saying accountability is especially important when misconduct by lawyers and law firms threatens national security.
Excuse me.
He reports today of a deal between ICE and the IRS to make deportations easier. That report says the IRS plans to share addresses of suspected undocumented immigrants with immigration agents. And some new reaction to Trump's attacks on judges following rulings against his administration policies. Here's the view on the Sunday talk shows from both sides of the political aisle.
I don't care what that judges think as far as this case. We're going to continue to arrest public safety threats and national security threats. We're going to continue to deport them to the United States.
I suspect as this works its way up to the Supreme Court, when you get to the Supreme Court, I do believe the Supreme Court is going to limit district judges from having nationwide rulings.
We've had a very good record of success. So Donald Trump, infuriated by that success, said judges should be impeached. Let me tell Donald Trump and the American people, Democrats in the Senate will not impeach judges, full stop.
Also new today, Trump's allies are pressing the White House to dial back Elon Musk's media interviews about Social Security, saying people should only worry about what the President of the United States is saying. And a new update from Attorney General Pam Bondi on suspects arrested in connection with Tesla protests.
The 3 people in custody right now, they will receive severe and swift consequences, and they are facing up to 20 years in prison. We are not negotiating these. We are not coming off these charges. We are looking at everything, especially if this is a concerted effort. This is domestic terrorism.
A new reaction to angry voters showing up at town halls. Congressman Ro Khanna acknowledging that voters across the political spectrum feel let down.
First of all, in America, leaders aren't supposed to hide from people. You're supposed to show up and take questions. And you're right, there is anger mostly at the cuts on Medicaid and veterans being fired, but there also is anger at Democrats. In fact, in one of the town halls, people were upset that we weren't doing enough to protect these cuts.
We have reporters and analysts in place ready to go over all these new developments, and we're going to start with NBC's Yamiche Alcindor at the White House, of course. So, Yamiche, welcome to you. What are we hearing from the administration today about all the legal challenges that Trump's policies are facing?
Well, good afternoon, Alex. What we should remember is that the president and the Trump administration is appealing at least 15 cases that they've lost at the appeals level or at the federal level, and they're continuing to make their cases and hoping that they end up at the Supreme Court, where the president says he ultimately can win a number of these cases. And they deal with everything from judges blocking the president's transgender ban on transgender Americans serving in the military to a judge also looking into the deportation flights that went on to El Salvador when the president had been told and his administration had been told to turn around flights mid-air. Here's the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, talking specifically about that case dealing with the Venezuelan immigrants, as well as sort of the cases that they're dealing with broadly.
Oh, the Supreme Court will get involved. This is an out-of-control judge, a federal judge trying to control our entire foreign policy, and he cannot do it. He's trying to ask us about national security information, which he is absolutely not entitled to. We are appealing. We will be in court Monday. Again, we will win. We will prevail. We are fighting back every step of the way. We are in court every day fighting against these activist judges. We're not going to stop. Many of them should be recused from these cases. They will be recused from these cases.
So there was, again, the Attorney General saying that they believe that they will ultimately win the case dealing with deportation flights and Venezuelan migrants that went to El Salvador when they get to the Supreme Court, but also broadly going after a number of judges that they've been really painting as radical activists. That's their language that the president and his allies have been using. But all of this is sort of getting interesting because we saw this extraordinary statement on Tuesday from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, who, of course, was appointed by a Republican president. We should put it up for folks. It says, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that response, and of course that purpose. And of course, what he's referring to is the fact that the president and a number of allies have been saying that the judge dealing with that Venezuelan deportation flight, as well as a number of other judges, that they should be impeached for that. We also just got some news just as I was walking up to the camera a few minutes ago. President Trump is expected to hold a cabinet meeting here at the White House tomorrow. We've inquired about whether or not Elon Musk, who of course has been the center of a lot of anger dealing with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and the cuts that have been made there. We got a no comment so far from the first White House official, but I'm still calling, and I'll let you know, Alex, if I get some more information about whether or not Elon Musk is going to be at that cabinet meeting tomorrow here at the White House.
Like he was the first one. I'm glad you shared that. You got the news as you were walking to the camera. I got the news from you because I was walking to the studio. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, my friend. Joining me right now, Politico reporter, White House reporter, that is, of course, Maya Ward, and Don Calloway, host of the Caucus Room podcast and CEO of Pine Street Strategies, along with former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro, as well as Republican strategist Susan Del Percio. Both of those are MSNBC political analysts. Welcome all to Big Conversation. Let's get into it with you, Maya. Sending the group of Venezuelans to El Salvador, that appears to be among the first instances of the Trump administration potentially ignoring a court order. So what does this legal battle signal for Trump's deportation plans, and your reaction to what Pam Bondi said?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are so many policies here that they have implemented, especially on the immigration front, that they knew were going to be challenged in the courts. But that is some of the point, flood the zone and then trying to get answers, particularly from the Supreme Court. Stephen Miller and other Trump aides and allies, I mean, they spent the last 4 years learning from the mistakes of Trump 1, identifying these archaic and obscure laws that they could test out here. So, I mean, whether it's birthright citizenship or the ability to use the Alien Enemies Act, like we saw here, to deport people they say were gang members without court hearings. Marco Rubio using this obscure provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act to detain a pro-Palestinian activist who has a green card. These are all questions they do hope to get before the Supreme Court. I think what was interesting about this Alien Enemies Act case, those of us who have been reporting on immigration, we all knew that was Trump talking about wanting to use this, that there was going to be a legal battle about, whether it was okay to use the 1798 law in the way that they are. But the quiet rollout last weekend, the immediate court challenges, and I mean, we were tracking the planes live during the hearing last weekend and watching them take off. This was not something we were expecting. You have this judge now saying he wants to get to the bottom of whether the White House defied this order to turn the planes around. I mean, this has really been something I did not predict.
But also, Maya, Trump said deportations would focus on violent criminals first. There have been, as you know, multiple headline-making cases that show otherwise, including in one of your articles. How do the actions of the administration fold into what you discovered?
Yeah, I mean, what I will say here, and you are right, that's another very big piece of information we're trying to get is what criteria are they using to determine that these Venezuelan men are actually gang members? We've heard a ton of cases from family members saying that their family members are not associated with gangs, that they have tattoos. I mean, there's been story after story on this. What I will say here, and I did write about this last week, capturing everything that we're seeing in this moment, there's this narrative from the White House that he's going after criminals, that is the focus, that is step one. We've heard a great deal of emphasis on that. But the reality is once he runs out of the lower hanging fruit, getting immigrants out of these jails who've committed crimes, border crossings are incredibly low right now, so they're not able to immediately get people, arrest them, and deport them at the border. They are looking for other ways to expand these numbers. But that also brings Trump into politically risky territory. We all remember family separation from Trump 1. I am not saying we're at that moment yet, but I bring this up because we do know that voters have red lines when it comes to immigration. It's a complex one, and when you're talking about immigrants who have been here for more than a decade, who are law-abiding, who are married to U.S. citizens, have U.S. citizen children, or are dreamers, Americans, when you look at the polls, are not as supportive of the deportation effort. People across the board support removing criminals, but when you get into those other groups, it gets trickier.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into part of that, Julian, with you, because there's new reporting. The IRS is nearing a deal with ICE to share names and addresses of people who pay taxes but are living in the country illegally. So that goes against long-standing precedent. What does that mean for immigrants in this country? And what effect of this is this going to lead to less tax revenue, let alone people doing the jobs they're being paid for?
Well, I think it's going to have a chilling effect across the board. That data is supposed to be confidential. It's supposed to be private. There are a lot of U.S. citizens, Americans, who I think will have a problem with this because they don't like the idea of the IRS sharing data with other departments. Today, it's tomorrow it might be the Department of Homeland Security. Next year, it might be some other department that they want to share that information with. But I think the point here is that Trump said we're going to go after these violent criminals. These folks who have individual taxpayer identification numbers, or ITINs is what we're talking about, these are folks who are productively working, supporting their families. These are not, by and large, criminals. Now the administration is opening up that dragnet to people that I think the vast majority of Americans didn't actually believe they were going to go after. And I don't think that the majority of Americans will support it either. It's going to have a chilling effect on people paying their taxes. And I think one day will be used by future administrations for other nefarious purposes.
Well, Dawn, after the judge ruled against the administration's efforts for these deportations, Trump called for that judge to be impeached. I mean, that only heightened a wave of judicial threats. Are these Trump attacks potentially chilling on the judiciary? And how could that impact the rule of law then?
I don't think they're chilling upon the judiciary. If you think about what happened in the first Trump administration, if you recall that he went after Judge Francisco Gonzalez. So he has, throughout the 10 years that he's been in the public eye, a history and a tradition of attacking federal judges who go against what he says. Now, thus far, federal judges have been great in terms of defying not only what the Trump administration wants to do, but more importantly, looking at the Trump administration's actions in light of what the Constitution allows the executive administration to do. It's very important to remember that these judges aren't making political decisions, they're making constitutional decisions. And we've seen that Donald Trump rails against them when they don't go his way, but it's actually a good thing. And it's interesting when you saw that graphic that you posted when Maya was speaking about federal judges who have defied the Trump administration, they only put up those who were appointed by Democrats. But there have been judges appointed by both Bushes as well as Trump himself who have stood in defiance to what the Trump administration wants to do. And that's important to remember because it shows that the federal courts are a last stopgap and they are doing the right thing based upon the Constitution when it comes to some of these extreme actions.
Yeah, that's a good point you make, Joe. So, Susan, but it's not just judges, right? It's lawyers, too. Trump issued executive orders against firms that brought cases against him. He withdrew one EO this week when that firm, it's Paul Weiss, agreed to do, $40 million worth of pro bono legal work for White House initiatives. But how slippery of a slope is this?
This is bone chilling. You're basically saying you're going to close down businesses. In this case, it's a law firm, but it could be other businesses that maybe one person voted, is known as a Democratic donor and can no longer have a defense contract with the government. This is definitely a slippery slope. I just want to go back to the judges just for a moment. One thing, I agree with most of what Don said, but these judges are not in defiance of Donald Trump. They are following the law. And that's so important how we use our language, because I don't want a judge being in defiant of anybody. I want a judge doing their job. And what we've also seen with Donald Trump right now, and I think it also will see it with this lawsuit against law firms, is that they're so sloppy. The case against that's right now that President Trump is calling for the judge to be impeached, he would have won it easily. The judge was questioning how they got to the conclusion, not if these people should be sent back or not, simply if they were given due process. So you can always tell with Trump, if they double down, triple down, and try and send out a message that's so kind of wacky, that they know they kind of stepped in it, because this would have been a no-brainer.
Okay. Out of time, but quickly, Maya, do you think Elon Musk will be at the just-announced cabinet meeting tomorrow at the White House?
I think we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, we had that interesting story last week about the potential classified briefing at the Pentagon. There was a lot of backpedaling there. So, there was already some work being done to kind of smooth that over on Friday. So we'll have to see if he's going to make an appearance this week.
TBD then. All right. Maya, thank you so much for joining us. But Don, Julian, and Susan, please stay with me, because we are going to talk about why MAGA voters are standing by Trump and how cruelty might be the point of that. But first, the new book that gives an insider's view of Donald Trump's return to power, how the team behind Trump 2.0 is so different from his first-term staff. We're back in 90 seconds.
Our floors don't stay clean very long. That's why I love my Swiffer Wet. I pop on a pad and get a mop-like clean floor in just one swipe. Wow. And for hair, try Swiffer Dry Cloths. The fluffy cloths pick up hair like a magnet. Swiffer, you'll love it, or your money back.
With moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, my skin was no longer mine.
My active psoriatic arthritis joint symptoms held me back.
Don't let symptoms define you. Emerge as you with clearer skin. With Tremfya, most people saw 100% clear skin that stayed clear, even at 5 years. Tremfya is proven to significantly reduce joint pain, stiffness, and swelling.
Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine.
Emerge as you with clear skin. Ask your doctor about Tremfya.
Yoo-hoo! You're making everything cooler.
We're showing where consumer cellular gets great coverage.
We use the same towers as Big Wireless, so you get the same coverage.
Wow.
For unlimited talk and text with reliable coverage starting at just $20. Call or visit Consumer Cellular.
Here's to getting better with age.
Cheers to beating these two every Thursday.
Help fuel today with Boost High Protein. Complete nutrition you need and the flavor you love. So here's to now. Now available Boost Max.
President Trump can consult anybody he wants to. Elon Musk is not making any cuts. He's only suggesting the cuts, and then President Trump is making the cuts.
Let me ask you, because Elon Musk ruffled some feathers when he referred to Social Security, something that he's also eyeing as a part of his Doge efforts, as a Ponzi scheme. Senator, do you see Social Security as a Ponzi scheme?
Well, I wouldn't use those words, but we're not being honest either with people. And that's why you'll actually see me in a couple of months introduce a change to Social Security. We're not being honest when we look people in the eye and say we're not going to touch it.
Wow. Republican Utah Senator John Curtis this morning on concerns from constituents over the future of Social Security, but insisting Elon Musk won't be the one to change it. Well, joining us now, we have Alex Eisenstadt, Axios senior political reporter and author of Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power. Alex, we are going to get to your terrific book in just a minute. But first, Trump allies are reportedly asking the president to rein in Elon Musk after his controversial comments. Trump has put few limitations on Musk so far. So will it have to be some kind of catastrophic threat or action with Social Security to actually rein him in?
Yeah, look, here's the thing about Musk is that it's a little harder to rein him in than the typical politician because he has enormous amount of leverage. He can go back to his other companies. He has hundreds of millions of dollars he can spend on politics if he wants to. And so Trump has to handle Elon pretty carefully. If he turns on Elon too aggressively, that could put him in a weird spot because Elon could go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars potentially against Trump or on candidates that he supports that Trump might not support himself. So it's a delicate dance with Trump and Elon because he's such a powerful figure.
Yeah. And in fact, in Wisconsin, speaking of support, you report that two Musk-backed groups are supporting a Republican campaign for a swing seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. At least one super PAC is offering voters $100 to sign a petition denouncing, quote, activist judges. Is there a difference, Alex, between this and you remember Musk's $1 million election campaign giveaways in Pennsylvania? Is Musk himself following this race?
Yes. This is, and you're right, this is exactly something that Musk did toward the end of the 2024 election. He went out and he offered people $1 million to register to vote and then offered $1 million giveaways for those who did register to vote. What it illustrates is that Musk is willing to put his considerable wealth into politics. And there's going to be a lot more of this between now and the 2026 midterm elections.
Okay, now we're getting to this. Ready? Here it is, this book. It's so good. All right. So after, 300 interviews with an array of insider sources, you write at the beginning about an Oval Office meeting. It was the holidays. There was a Christmas tree that stood in the corner just a few weeks after the 2020 election. Trump knew then he was likely leaving the White House on January 20, despite his many legal efforts to overturn the election results. In that meeting, he was clear to his inner circle he thought he should run again. So what was the reaction then, and how soon after did Trump make it official, at least to his inner circle?
Trump's inner circle was surprised when he made these remarks because it was the first time they had heard that he was interested in running again. And keep in mind, this meeting was just before the January 6th Capitol riot. And so what that shows is that with his flurry of litigation, all of which failed to try to overturn the results of the 2020 election, Trump was really priming his supporters to think about how, in his view, the election was stolen and how, therefore, he wanted to make a comeback in 2024. He was thinking about this even before the January 6th riot.
So in the years between Trump's presidencies, you write that he wanted to run the party like a big city political machine. Talk about Trump's affection, as you call it, for, is it Meade Esposito? Yep. I mean, who was he? How did he influence Donald Trump's next campaign?
Sure. So Meade Esposito is an old school Brooklyn political boss from decades ago. He was a very transactional favor. He doled out favors, expected favors in return. The reason why this is important is because it sheds a light on how Trump views politics. And you see it all the time today. He doles out favors. He expects favors in return. Donald Trump views politics through a prism of transactionalism. So a lot of the moves that he makes while he's president right now are sort of with the mind towards transactionalism and in the way you might see an old school political boss, a big city political boss behave.
So the campaign's approach and maintaining control of it really centered around Trump's campaign co-chairs, Susie Wiles, of course, now White House Chief of Staff, and Chris LaCivita. What did they bring that was instrumental to Trump's 2024 victory?
Sure. So they brought a level of professionalism and organization that Trump never had in his 2016 campaign, in his 2020 campaign, and certainly not during his White House. It was all chaos. It was infighting. It was backstabbing. Everything was, everyone was divisioned off from one another. Infighting was rampant. And so what they brought was a centralized, or as centralized in Trump world as you could be, mode of operating. And what you see now in this White House is that playing out again. Susie Wiles is running the White House. She has a lot of loyalists, Florida-based loyalists around her, people who are loyal to her. And you see a very different White House than the first time around, where there was a lot of backbiting, there was a lot of infighting, and you're not seeing that same amount of infighting this time around. That's not to say there isn't chaos. That's not to say there isn't disagreements, but you're seeing a much more organized White House this time around.
Have you heard from the White House, Alex, about your book? Is anyone disputing anything that you've written?
Not yet.
Not yet? That's good.
Not yet.
Can you tell me what the most surprising thing is that you learned?
Sure. The most surprising thing I learned is that Trump is actually kind of more of a relaxed person this time around. He knows what he wants to do. He has a method. He has a method that he's following. He's much more organized than he was when he in President 2020, when he didn't know as much of what he wanted to do. He's a little bit more fatalistic. He's a little bit more chill, to sort of a casual phrase.
Okay. Can I just thank you for making me stay awake too late? I was awake last night reading this because it's that good. Total page turner. Loved it, loved it. All right, Alex Eisenstadt, thank you so much. A remarkable update on Pope Francis. That's next.
Todd takes Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Todd. I'm a veteran of 23 years. I served 3 overseas tours. I love to give back to the community. I saw a Prevagen commercial, and I did some research on it. I started taking Prevagen about 3 years ago. I've told my coworkers and family since taking Prevagen how much of a difference it's made in my life. I feel really good.
Prevagen, for your brain.
My friends, the trolls,
Liberty Mutual is all she talks about since we saved hundreds by bundling our home and auto insurance.
Some people are worth melting for.
Hey kid, it's pronounced Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty.
Liberty.
Bibberty. Now she's mocking me. Very mature.
Hey, that's a nephew too.
Hey, I'm not the one acting like a total baby.
She's 2.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, liberty, liberty. Liberty.
Trains. Trains that use the power of Dell AI and Intel, clearing the way so you arrive exactly where you belong.
Wow. Incredible. Amazing. My go-to is Lumify eye drops. Lumify dramatically reduces redness.
In 1 minute.
And look at the difference. My eyes look brighter and whiter for up to 8 hours. Lumify? It's kind of amazing. See for yourself.
Stuck paying off your phone, but want a new one? Break up with your carrier. We've got you. Switch to Verizon, and we'll give you up to $800 to pay off your phone. And you'll get a new iPhone. That's iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence on us, on any plan. Now with Genmoji. Only on Verizon.
If you're looking for a Medicare supplement insurance plan that's smart now
I'm 65.
and really smart later,
I'm 70-ish.
consider an AARP Medicare supplement insurance plan from United Healthcare. With this type of plan, you'll know up front about how much your care costs, which makes planning your financial future easier. So call United Healthcare today to learn more about the only plans of their kind with the AARP name, and set yourself and your future self up with an AARP Medicare supplement plan from United Healthcare.
Thinking of updating my kitchen? Yeah? Yes.
This year, we are finally updating our kitchen, doing subway tile and ivory.
Oh, don't get me started on quartz. Big island. You ever heard of a waterfall count?
For everyone who talks about doing that thing, but never does that thing,
Sweet little breakfast nook.
Chase has financial
See how
guidance.
you can start saving and make this happen. Really? Really.
At home or in
You
person.
could also check out a Chase Money Skills workshop.
That's guidance from Chase. Make more of what's yours.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
DealDash.com. Online auctions since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. This iPad Pro sold for less than $34. Go to DealDash.com and see how much you can save.
He signs them out. Fly it like a lotus. Piss, underboob, bifold, buck crap. This water-based cream, I'm telling you, it's invisible on the skin. It works like a dream. Why didn't someone think of this sooner?
You've got a subscription to streaming movies and music, maybe even more for food. But what about when it's your water line that's streaming? Repairs are expensive. Good contractors are hard to find. The plan from HomeServe is like a subscription to peace of mind. For one small monthly fee, when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. Why worry? Get HomeServe and chill.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-833-735-4495 or visit HomeServe.com.
MSNBC Premium gives you early access and ad-free listening to Rachel Maddow's chart-topping series, MSNBC Original Podcasts, exclusive bonus content, and all of your favorite MSNBC shows now ad-free. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Let's just get a closer look.
You've got to see this.
Epic Universe, only at Universal Orlando Resort.
New today, Pope Francis greeted eager crowds from his hospital window shortly before being discharged. It marked his first public appearance in more than 5 weeks since he was hospitalized. NBC's Ralph Sanchez is in London with the very latest. So, Ralph, welcome to you. What do we know about the Pope's condition now? Is he back to his regular duties?
He is not back to his regular duties, Alex. He has a long way to go. His doctors say he needs at least 2 months of rest and convalescence after that very long hospital stint. Yeah, but you can see him. He is looking a little frail, but smiling broadly as he appeared at the balcony of that hospital where for the last 5 weeks he has been battling really near fatal pneumonia. His doctors say that he had 2 life-threatening episodes in his time in hospital. Things were so dire at one point, you might remember, Alex, that the Archbishop of New York, Timothy Dolan, saying the Pope appeared to be close to death, and yet here he was today. He spoke only very briefly from the balcony of the Gemelli Hospital, and he singled out a woman in the crowd who was holding up yellow flowers for him. She, as you can imagine, completely overwhelmed to be the focus of the pontiff's attention. He was then driven in a very distinctive little white Fiat back to the Vatican. His doctors are saying, 1, it's going to be a while before his voice returns to normal. He's been getting oxygen treatment, and it's going to take a little while for his vocal cords to recover. 2, he is going to need ongoing oxygen. He's also going to need therapy. And 3, they are urging him to avoid large meetings. They are urging him to avoid meeting with children to try to reduce his risk of infection. That is raising some questions about what kind of a role he's going to be able to play in the Easter celebrations next month. But Alex, the Pope is famous for his sense of humor, especially when he is poking fun at himself. And his doctors said that they went in one morning, they said, "Holy Father, how are you feeling?" He said, "I'm still alive." And they took that, if he was still able to joke, that he was a patient on the road to recovery. Alex.
Well, good. I'm glad he's gone back to the Vatican, and we're all certainly pulling for him. Thank you very much, Ralph. That was at least a good news story. Appreciate it. Using the DOJ to scare off lawyers and lawsuits, what to make of President Trump's new strategy? I'm going to talk about it with attorney and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett next.
For the acute treatment of migraine with or without aura in adults, Nurtec ODT can provide relief in 2 hours, which can last up to 2 days. Don't take if allergic to Nurtec ODT. Allergic reactions can occur even days after use, like trouble breathing and rash. Get help if you have trouble breathing, swelling of the face, mouth, tongue, or throat. Common side effect is nausea. Ask your doctor about Nurtec ODT.
This one goes better with the walls.
This is so much easier than the home improvement store.
So which would you recommend?
Do you like brown?
Yeah, some things are just better at home. With Empire's Home Floor Advantage, you can compare samples in your own space. Plus, we'll be here to help you with every step of the process.
Call or visit EmpireToday.com and get the Home Floor Advantage.
It really is better at home.
Empire Today.
Travel can make you smell kind of funky, but aluminum-free Secret Whole Body Deodorant gives me 72-hour whole body freshness. For long layovers, surprise gate changes, and heavy luggage. And it's totally middle seat approved. Secret, no sweat.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life, posing a real threat to your family's comfort and safety. When the power goes out, you have no lights, no refrigeration, no heating or air conditioning.
The winds are not letting up at all here. We're going to see some power outages.
Number one thing to prepare for is extended power outages.
Are you prepared? You can be with a Generac home standby generator. When a power outage occurs, your Generac home standby generator automatically powers up using your home's existing natural gas or propane, so your life goes on without disruption. You and your family are comfortable, safe, and secure. Stay tuned to get over a $500 value free on the most popular home standby generator in the world.
With the Generac, we don't have to worry about whether we lose power or not. If the utility company does not come through, our Generac does.
Having a Generac takes a lot of the anxiety out of there's going to be a storm.
After the hurricane happened, we just want to be prepared for anything.
Generac generators are designed, engineered, and built in the USA. 8 out of 10 home generators are Generac and have thousands of satisfied customers.
How many times have you heard people say, I never want to go through that again? Well, the next time that you go through it, don't make it so hard on yourself. Have a Generac home standby generator.
Call or go online now to request your free quote with one of Generac's nationwide dealers. Special financing and low monthly payment options are available. And if you call now, you will also receive a free 5-year warranty valued at